Hi, I'm Jodi Bowersox, and I'm a finalist in this year's Cal Awards for the Colorado Authors League. The Diamond Diva Vendetta is actually a finalist in 3 different categories: romance, action and adventure, and even the cover design. The cover was designed by my son, Tristan Bowersox. The Diamond Diva Vendetta is the second book in my Anonymous series that started with Cinnamon Girl Explains It All. This series is a romantic suspense series. Lots of action involved in this book. I'll just read you the synopsis. Rita Miller's Brazilian vacation turns into a fight for survival when a case of mistaken identity puts her at odds with a man bent on revenge. Logan Stafford's missing persons case is interrupted when a woman is targeted for murder right in front of him. Can she really be the Diva di Diamante, the notorious diamond smuggler as the shooter claimed? With a maniac on their trail through the jungles of Brazil, both urban and wild, Logan strives to keep Rita alive, all the while slowly learning who she really is and why he never wants to let her go. I'm going to read a little bit from the prologue that kind of sets up Rita's character and how she starts getting into trouble.
Samantha, how can you leave me like this? But Fernando, I'm only going to the John. Do not be long, my dear. I cannot live without you.
Rita brushed her brunette layers out of her eyes, sipped her caparina, and shifted her gaze to the next group on the beach that she'd give voice to.
Wilhelmina, your leg feels so stubbly. Oh, Alfredo, I bet you say that to all the girls.
To say that Rita was feeling surly would be an understatement of epic proportions. She'd been stood up by a handsome tourist who just happened to be in the publishing business and had been chatting her up earlier in the day. The man had suggested sharing a meal and drinks at the Sandbox, a bar and seafood grill on Santos Beach at 6 o'clock. It was now after 8. The sun was merely a smear of melted butter across the water, and the meeting that was supposed to change her life had turned into a drunken, bad-lip reading party for one. This whole Brazilian writing retreat was supposed to be a celebration for her divorce being final, and this hardly seemed like a good omen for starting over. She looked down at the espadrille sandals laced up her calves below the form-hugging palm print dress she'd bought against her better judgment, and a headline popped into her head. Totally hot tourist cools on totally hot publisher. After 30 minutes of waiting, she had thought about calling her traveling companion, Danny, to come join her, but after an hour, she knew she wasn't fit company for anyone, and alone had seemed completely apropos. She'd even considered calling Gaspar so the evening wouldn't be a complete waste, but she was always annoyed by people talking on their phones in restaurants. She'd wait for a better time. She took another sip, leaning an elbow on the deck railing, watching a light bobbing close to the water's edge, the silhouette of a small boat still visible in the dwindling daylight. A figure climbed out, leaving an oarsman behind, and made his way up the beach. Rita began to narrate that which she could really barely see. The tall, wiry man strode with purpose, the muscles in his legs burning with the effort it took to walk through the thick sand. He paused and pointed a small flashlight at his hand. The map she had drawn for him was now in tatters, but it would still lead him to untold treasures. Rita giggled and brought her drink to her lips as the man seemed to turn and head toward the grill. But first, she continued, Francois de Gaulle, San Pedro, Arturo Madrid needed a stiff drink. The jewels will still be there after I have a Corona, he reasoned in his gravelly voice. I've traveled far and... Rita paused and squinted in irritation as the man swept his flashlight over the crowd on the bar's elevated patio. Hey, man, cut it out! Someone yelled nearby, and Rita turned to get the surprisingly bright light out of her eyes as more rumbles of irritation were directed at the interloper. She continued narrating in her head. Francois was rude and uncultured, however, starting a fight with the locals who... The light was in her face again. She turned her back to it and found that the waiter clearing her table looked as irritated as she felt. Listen, mister, she threw over her shoulder. This is not a good way to make friends and influence.
Diva de Diamante, I am here for you.
The man's accent sounded native to Brazil. The waiter froze, his surprised expression illuminated quite clearly. Rita looked past him with amusement. Hey, Diva, she projected across the deck. Whoever you are, come forth so this guy will stop blinding us. He spoke again.
Or do you now prefer Rita Engels?
Rita turned in surprise, holding a hand to her squinting eyes, and tried to see the man behind the light. All she could tell was that he was tall. For your information, it's not Engels anymore. It's Miller. Who are you?
Someone you should not have crossed.
As the gunshot rang out, and she stumbled back, flinging what was left of her drink, she had the inane thought that she needed to write this down. You can find this book and all of my books on Amazon or my website, jodibowersox.com. JODIBOWERSOX. Thanks for listening, and I hope you pick up a copy of the Diamond Diva Vendetta for your own. Thanks.